I walked into the conference room thinking it was another Tuesday strategy meeting. Instead, I found 12 people staring at me like I'd already been convicted. My boss, Derek Winters, sat at the head of the table with that smirk he wore when closing deals. Then I saw her. My wife, Amanda, sitting 3 seats down, refusing to meet my eyes. My stomach dropped. "Nathan Clarke," Derek said, sliding a folder across the table. "We need to discuss some serious ethical violations." I looked at Amanda. She studied her hands. "What violations?" My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Derek opened the folder. "Misappropriation of company resources. Conflicts of interest. We have documentation." I'd worked at Horizon Tech for 8 years. Built their entire data architecture from nothing. This was insane. "I want to see this documentation." "You'll receive everything through your lawyer," Derek said. "Effective immediately, your employment is terminated. Security will escort you out." The room spun. Amanda finally looked up, and I saw something worse than anger. Pity. 5 minutes. That's all it took to destroy everything I'd built. In the hallway, Derek caught up to me while security packed my desk. He leaned close, voice low enough that only I could hear. "Thanks for training me so well, Nathan. Really couldn't have done this without you." His breath smelled like the coffee I'd taught him to order. The expensive kind from the place near our office. Our office? Not anymore. I wanted to punch him. Instead, I just stared. "You'll understand eventually," he said. "It's just business." Amanda appeared beside him, her expression carefully neutral. Professional. Like we were strangers. "I'm moving out this weekend," she said. "The kids are coming with me." "Amanda, what are you talking about? Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Her voice was ice. "My lawyer will contact yours." She turned and walked away with Derek. Not beside him. With him. Their shoulders touched as they rounded the corner. That's when I understood. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't impulsive. They'd planned this together, probably for months. While I'd been working late on the Morrison account. While Amanda had been visiting her sister on weekends. While I'd been building our future. They'd been dismantling it. By 6 that evening, my company email bounced back. My access cards didn't work. My name was scrubbed from the employee directory like I'd never existed. I called Jamie, my closest colleague, the guy I'd mentored for 3 years. He didn't answer. I tried the group chat. Silence. Then I checked LinkedIn. Derek Winters, newly promoted to Chief Technology Officer. My role. The position I'd been promised for 2 years. The projects I'd built were listed under his achievements. The data migration framework I'd spent 18 months designing? Derek's innovation. The security protocols that saved the company $4 million in breaches? Derek's initiative. He'd stolen my work, my title, and my future. And he'd used my wife to do it. I sat in my car in the parking garage, staring at my phone, trying to understand how I'd missed the signs. How long had they been planning this? When had Amanda stopped being my partner and become his accomplice? The security guard tapped on my window. "Sir, you need to leave the premises." Even he looked at me with disgust. They'd poisoned everyone against me. The divorce papers arrived before I made it home. A process server waited at my door, professional and apologetic. "Nathan Clarke." "Yeah. You've been served." The petition accused me of emotional instability, professional misconduct, and creating an unsafe environment for our children. Our children. Sophia was 9. Lucas was 6. They were my whole world. Amanda's filing requested full custody with supervised visitation only. The grounds? Concerns raised by my former employer regarding my mental state and professional conduct. Derek's lies, weaponized in family court. I called Amanda 17 times. But I drove to our house. The locks were changed. Through the window, I could see boxes stacked in the hallway. She was erasing me from there too. A neighbor I'd known for 6 years saw me on the lawn. She pulled her daughter inside and locked the door. I sat on the curb where Lucas and I used to draw chalk dinosaurs. The street looked the same. The trees, the mailboxes, the basketball hoop I'd installed last summer. But I was a ghost here now. Unwelcome. Erased. The email hit my inbox at midnight. Subject line: internal memo regarding personnel changes. Someone had leaked it. Maybe intentionally. The memo portrayed me as volatile, uncooperative, and ethically compromised. It cited multiple incidents and ongoing concerns without providing specifics. Just enough detail to sound damning. Vague enough to be impossible to disprove. By morning it was everywhere. Former colleagues shared it. Industry contacts saw it. Recruiters who'd once courted me went silent. My phone rang exactly once. A reporter from a tech blog wanting a comment on my fall from grace. I hung up. My reputation, built over 15 years, collapsed in 12 hours. Jamie finally texted me, "Dude, I don't know what happened, but I can't be associated with this. Sorry." I'd been his mentor. His reference. The person he called when his mother was sick and he needed someone to cover his shifts. Now I was toxic. Contaminated. By Thursday, my professional network had blocked me almost universally. The few who hadn't were too scared to respond to my messages. Derek had turned me into a cautionary tale. And nobody wanted to be next. Amanda's lawyer sent the custody order Friday afternoon. Supervised visitation only. 2 hours, twice monthly, at a court-approved facility. The supervisor's fee was $200 per session. My fault, apparently, for being unstable. The concerns came from Derek. He'd submitted a statement to Amanda's attorney describing my erratic workplace behavior and concerning comments about family stress. All lies. But his title gave them weight. His position made him credible. I was just the fired guy with nothing. I tried calling Sophia's school. They wouldn't put me through. Amanda had filed paperwork listing me as a potential threat. I drove to Lucas's soccer practice Saturday morning. Amanda was there with Derek. He had his hand on Lucas's shoulder, playing stepfather already. When Lucas saw me, he looked confused. Amanda whispered something to him and he stayed put. I stood behind the fence like a stranger. Like a danger. That night, alone in the apartment I'd rented with my savings, I hit bottom. Then I discovered bottom had a basement. The apartment was half empty because I'd left everything in the house. The furniture Amanda had picked out. The photos she'd arranged. The life we'd built. I sat on a folding chair eating cereal from the box because I hadn't bought bowls yet. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Nathan Clarke. Yes. This is Howard Chin from Westfield Legal Associates. I'm calling regarding your uncle, Vincent Clarke. Uncle Vincent. I hadn't thought about him in years. The family eccentric. The one who'd disappeared after some business failure and never came back. I'm sorry to inform you that Vincent passed away last week. There's a matter of his estate that requires your attention. I didn't know he had an estate. Could you come to our office Monday at 10? It's important. I almost said no. Almost told him I had enough problems without adding a dead uncle's debts to the pile. But I had nothing else. No job. No family. No reason to refuse. I'll be there. I hung up and went back to my cereal. Uncle Vincent, the failure. Somehow that felt appropriate. Monday morning, I put on my last clean shirt and drove to Westfield Legal Associates. The office was downtown, the kind of place with marble floors and paintings that cost more than cars. Howard Chin was mid-50s, gray at the temples, expensive suit. He shook my hand with surprising warmth. Thank you for coming, Nathan. Please, sit. I'll be honest, Mr. Chin. I didn't really know my uncle. The family didn't talk about him much. I'm aware. Vincent was quite deliberate about his privacy. He slid a folder across the desk. Your uncle spent the last 30 years building something remarkable. And he left very specific instructions about who should inherit it. I opened the folder. The first page was a letter in handwriting I vaguely remembered from childhood birthday cards. Nathan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. The family always thought I failed. Let them keep thinking that. But you were always different. You asked questions. You listened. I'm trusting you with everything I built. Use it wisely. Don't waste it on revenge. Use it for justice. I looked up at Chin. I don't understand. Turn the page. I did. and my entire world shifted. The documents detailed shell companies, holding firms, investment portfolios. Names I didn't recognize attached to assets I couldn't comprehend. Chen walked me through it carefully. Your uncle started with a single patent in 1994. Something to do with data compression. He licensed it quietly, reinvested the profits, and built from there. I didn't know he worked in tech. He didn't advertise it. Vincent preferred obscurity. He acquired undervalued patents, invested in early-stage companies, and sold at precisely the right moments. Chen showed me spreadsheets going back decades. Consistent growth. Strategic acquisitions. Nothing flashy. Nothing public. Just steady, intelligent accumulation. He owned pieces of 17 companies. Most people don't know these holdings exist. They're buried in corporate structures designed for privacy. Why me? I asked. Why not his children? Vincent never married. Never had children. You're his closest living relative who showed him kindness. He mentioned you visited him once when you were 12. I remembered. A strange afternoon at a small house upstate. Uncle Vincent showing me his computer setup, explaining networks before I understood what they were. Telling me that systems were more honest than people. There's one more thing, Chen said, his expression serious. The total value. Your uncle's estate is currently valued at $80 million. The words didn't process at first. 80 million. The number was so large it felt abstract. Meaningless. That's impossible, I said. He lived in a tiny house. Drove an old car. By choice. Vincent believed in invisibility. He spent modestly, invested wisely, and never drew attention. Chen showed me the portfolio breakdown. Real estate holdings. Patent licenses. Equity positions in companies I recognized. All hidden behind layers of corporate structure. You're now the executor and sole beneficiary. It will take time to fully transfer everything, but the assets are yours. I stared at the numbers. $80 million. More money than I'd earn in 10 lifetimes. Enough to solve every problem I had. Enough to destroy everyone who destroyed me. What do? I asked. Chen leaned back in his chair. That's entirely up to you, Nathan. But I'd suggest you take some time before making any decisions. Wealth used impulsively tends to create more problems than it solves. I nodded, but I was barely listening. My mind was already racing. Derek, Amanda, Horizon Tech. They thought they'd won. They thought I was finished. They had no idea what was coming. I told no one. Not a single person. I went back to my half-empty apartment and sat with the information for 3 days. Amanda's lawyer called about custody arrangements. I agreed to everything without fighting. Derek's assistant sent me a final severance check, laughably small. I deposited it without comment. To everyone watching, I was exactly what they'd painted me as. Broken. Defeated. Removed. But at night, I studied the documents Chen had given me. I learned the structure of my uncle's empire. The shell companies. The holding firms. The ways he'd moved money without leaving obvious trails. Vincent had been a ghost in the financial world. Now I would be too. On day 4, I made my first move. Using one of Vincent's holding companies, Clearwater Ventures, I contacted a corporate intelligence firm. Not the kind that advertises. The kind that exists only through referrals. I need everything you can find on Horizon Technologies and its executive team, I said. Especially Derek Winters. Timeline? Take your time. Be thorough. I want documentation, not rumors. Understood. This will be expensive. Money isn't a concern. Those words felt strange in my mouth. But they were true now. Money would never be a concern again. The intelligence report arrived 2 weeks later. 300 pages of detailed analysis. Corporate structure. Financial statements. Executive backgrounds. Project histories. And there, buried in the technical documentation, was the proof I needed. Horizon's latest security framework, the one earning them millions in new contracts, was built entirely on my proprietary code. The framework I'd designed. The architecture I'd created. Derek had simply repackaged it, put his name on it, and sold it as his innovation. But he'd been sloppy. The code comments still had my initials. The documentation structure matched my templates exactly. Any competent technical audit would reveal the theft immediately. I kept reading. The report detailed Derek's career, his education, his previous roles. He'd never built anything original. His entire career was repackaged work from people he'd managed. I was just his latest victim. And he'd gotten greedy. The framework was too big, too valuable. He couldn't resist taking credit. That greed would destroy him. I just had to be patient. I just had to be smart. Uncle Vincent's letter echoed in my mind. Don't waste it on revenge. Use it for justice. I was beginning to understand the difference. Through Clearwater Ventures, I purchased a minority stake in Horizon Technologies. Not enough to trigger disclosure requirements. Just enough to get access to shareholder information. The purchase went through a broker in Singapore. The paperwork listed Clearwater as an investment firm based in Delaware. Standard corporate structure. Nothing unusual. Nobody at Horizon noticed. Nobody connected the dots. I was a ghost shareholder in my former company. It felt appropriate somehow. That same week, I hired 3 people. A corporate lawyer who specialized in intellectual property. A forensic accountant who'd worked with the SEC. And a private investigator who focused on corporate fraud. I didn't tell them my name. I didn't tell them why. I just gave them targets and paid them extremely well to be thorough. Document everything, I said. I want proof that would hold up in federal court. They didn't ask questions. People rarely do when you're paying them 5 times their normal rate. By the end of month 2, I had file boxes full of evidence. Communications. Code repositories. Project timelines. Financial transfers. A complete picture of what Derek had done. And how he'd used Amanda to do it. The emails were particularly damning. Internal communications between Derek and HR that started 6 months before my termination. We need to begin documenting performance issues with Nathan Clarke, Derek had written. Create the paper trail. HR had complied. Fake complaints. Manufactured incidents. Invented concerns. All carefully designed to build a termination case. But the worst email came 3 months before I was fired. Derek to Amanda. Subject line, our future. Once Nathan's out, everything changes. The promotion, the equity, the influence. We just need to be patient a little longer. Keep him distracted with the Morrison project. By the time he realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. Amanda's response, I trust you. This is hard, but I know it's right. They'd plotted my destruction together. Used my work. Used my trust. Used everything I'd built. And they'd done it coldly, calculatedly, without hesitation. I sat in my apartment reading these emails over and over. Part of me wanted to send them to everyone we knew. Burn their reputations the way they'd burned mine. But that wasn't justice. That was revenge. And revenge was quick. Justice took time. The investigator's report on Amanda revealed something interesting. Derek had promised her everything. Partnership in his success. Financial security. A role in the company's future. But he'd put nothing in writing. No legal agreements. No binding contracts. Just words. And Derek's pattern, documented across 3 previous relationships, showed he made lots of promises. Kept very few. Amanda had blown up her marriage for a man who'd already started pulling away. The investigator had photos. Derek at lunch with a Horizon board member's daughter. Derek at a hotel bar with someone from the legal department. Derek was already hedging his bets. Already looking for his next opportunity. Amanda was useful to him. She'd helped remove me, helped him take my position. But useful wasn't the same as permanent. She just didn't know it yet. I could have sent her the evidence. Warned her. But she'd made her choice. She'd chosen to believe Derek's lies. Chosen to take my children away. Chosen to destroy me without proof or hesitation. Now she could live with the consequences. I had bigger targets. The company itself was vulnerable. And I was about to exploit every weakness. Using another shell company, I funded a regulatory compliance audit. The kind that happens when investors raise concerns. Anonymous concerns. Untraceable concerns. The auditors were thorough. They examined Horizon's security practices, their data handling, their client contracts. And they found problems. Small ones at first. Documentation gaps. Process irregularities. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to trigger deeper investigation. The SEC started asking questions. Not about me. About financial reporting. About executive compensation. About the security framework Derek had claimed as his own. Derek started making mistakes. I watched it happen through my shareholder updates. Emergency board meetings. Rushed policy changes. Expensive lawyers brought in to manage damage control. The pressure was building. And I was just getting started. I made sure the auditors saw the code comparison. My original work versus Derek's innovation. Let them draw their own conclusions. I made sure they interviewed former employees. People who'd worked with me. People who knew the truth. The evidence accumulated. The pressure mounted. And Derek, who'd always been better at taking credit than handling crisis, began to crack. Sophia called me on a Tuesday. Not Amanda's phone. Her own. Dad. Sophie. God, it's good to hear your voice. Mom said you were busy. That you didn't want to talk to us. The lie hit me like a physical blow. That's not true, sweetheart. I've been trying to reach you every day. Oh. A long pause. Things don't make sense, Dad. Mom says you did bad things at work. But you always said honesty was important. It is important. And I promise you, I didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes people lie about others to protect themselves. Is that what happened? Yes. Mom's boyfriend is weird. He acts nice but he's always on his phone. And he told Lucas he didn't need to play soccer anymore because it was expensive. My hands tightened on the phone. Derek was already showing his true nature. How are you handling all this? I miss you, she said quietly. I miss our Sunday pancakes. And our bookstore trips. And just talking. I miss you too. More than anything. Can I call you sometimes? Without telling Mom. It broke my heart. But I needed this connection. Just anytime you want. I'm always here for you. After we hung up, I sat in silence. This wasn't just about money or careers anymore. This was about my children. And I would burn everything Derek had built to get them back. Derek called me on a Friday afternoon. His number appeared on my screen for the first time since the termination. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Nathan. His voice was different. Tight. Rude. It's Derek. I know. Silence. He hadn't expected me to answer. Look, I think we got off on the wrong foot. The way things ended, it was just business. Nothing personal. Firing me was just business? Stealing my work was just business? There's been some confusion about project ownership. These regulatory investigations, they're making everything complicated. I thought maybe we could talk. Settle things quietly. I understood immediately. He was scared. The auditors were closing in and he needed me to disappear. What are you offering? $200,000. Cash. You sign an NDA and we both move forward. $200,000. 6 months ago, it would have changed my life. Now it was insulting. Let me think about it, I said. I need an answer soon, Nathan. This situation, it's affecting a lot of people. I'll bet it is. I hung up. He called back twice. I didn't answer. Let him sweat. Let him wonder. Let him make more mistakes. The next move wasn't a settlement. It was exposure. I released everything to the authorities and the press simultaneously. The forensic code analysis showing Derek's theft. The internal emails planning my termination. The manufactured HR complaints. The timeline of events. All of it documented, verified, and impossible to deny. I didn't do it under my name. I did it through my lawyer with full documentation as a formal complaint to the SEC and the State Attorney General. The tech blogs picked it up first. Former CTO accused of IP theft and wrongful termination. Then the business press. Horizon Technologies faces fraud investigation. Then mainstream media. Corporate conspiracy to steal employees' work. Derek tried to control the narrative. issued statements, hired crisis managers. But the evidence was overwhelming. The code didn't lie. The emails didn't lie. The timeline didn't lie. Horizon's stock dropped 14% in 2 days. Board members started resigning. Investors demanded answers. And Derek, who'd spent 6 months playing the successful executive, was suspended pending investigation. I watched it unfold from my apartment. No satisfaction. No joy. Just cold confirmation that justice, when properly applied, was more devastating than revenge. The company went into freefall. Clients suspended contracts. Partners pulled out. The security framework, Derek's flagship achievement, was removed from the market pending legal review. 3 executives resigned. 5 more were put on administrative leave. The board launched an internal investigation. Stock continued to drop. Horizon Technologies, once valued at $300 million, lost half its value in 3 weeks. And I owned shares in all of it. Watched my investment crater. But I didn't care about the money. Cared about the message. Amanda called me 12 times that day. I didn't answer. Her lawyer sent an email requesting an emergency modification to custody arrangements. I ignored it. They were panicking. Scrambling. Realizing too late that they'd tied themselves to a sinking ship. That night, I received a formal notice. The board had terminated Derek's employment. Criminal referrals were being made. Civil litigation would follow. He was done. Destroyed. Erased the same way he'd tried to erase me. But unlike my erasure, his was deserved. And permanent. Amanda showed up at my apartment on a Sunday morning. I saw her through the window and almost didn't answer. But I opened the door. She looked terrible. Eyes red. Hair uncombed. The polished executive wife persona completely gone. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She sat on my folding chair, the only furniture I had. "Derek cut me off," she said. "Completely. Changed his number. Had his lawyer send me a cease and desist." "I'm sorry." "I wasn't. I believed him, Nathan. He said you were sabotaging the company. That you were dangerous. He had evidence, documentation. Manufactured evidence. I know that now." She started crying. "I destroyed everything we had. A marriage. Our family. For someone who was using me." "Yes. Can you forgive me?" The question hung in the air. Could I? Should I? "You didn't just believe lies, Amanda. You helped create them. You took my children away. You watched me lose everything and felt nothing." I felt terrible. I just thought I was doing the right thing. "No. You thought you were doing the profitable thing. There's a difference." She looked up. "What happens now?" "Now you deal with the consequences." Just like I had to. I opened the door. "Goodbye, Amanda." She left without arguing. Some betrayals don't get forgiven. They just get survived. With Derek's lies exposed, the custody case collapsed. My lawyer filed an emergency motion with the evidence of coercion. The manufactured workplace complaints. The coordinated character assassination. The false statements used to restrict my parental rights. The judge reviewed everything in chambers. Called Amanda's lawyer in. Asked pointed questions about Derek's involvement. 2 weeks later, I received the order. Supervised visitation removed. Standard custody arrangement restored. 50-50 split. My rights as a father finally recognized again. I picked up Sophia and Lucas on a Friday afternoon. They ran to me in the parking lot. "Dad!" Lucas hit me like a small missile. Sophia hugged me more carefully, but just as tightly. "I missed you guys so much." "We missed you too," Sophia said. "Can we get pancakes?" "Absolutely." We went to our old spot. Ordered our usual. And for the first time in months, things felt almost normal. Almost right. They asked questions. Careful ones. About what happened. But I didn't trash Amanda. Didn't poison them. Just told the truth simply. Sometimes adults make mistakes. Your mom made some. I probably made some too. But none of it changes how much we both love you. That seemed to satisfy them. For now. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday. I received the notice as a shareholder. Minority stakeholders were allowed to attend but not vote. I showed up anyway. The room went quiet when I walked in. Board members who'd ignored my termination. Executives who'd spread Derek's lies. The interim CEO who'd issued the internal memo destroying my reputation. They all stared. I took a seat in the back. Said nothing. The meeting began with financial reports. All bad. Stock performance. Client losses. Pending litigation. Then they got to leadership restructuring. We need to discuss the CTO position, the board chair said. Given the current situation, we require someone with unimpeachable credentials and deep technical knowledge. I raised my hand. If I may. The room tensed. You're welcome to speak, Mr. Clarke, the chair said carefully. I have a proposal. I stood, walked to the front, and explained that Clearwater Ventures, the minority shareholder they'd barely noticed, had been quietly acquiring additional shares for the past month. Purchases made through various channels. All legal. All documented. And as of this morning, Clearwater held 51% of Horizon Technologies. I was the majority shareholder. The room erupted. This is irregular. We need to verify. Call the lawyers. I waited for silence. Then I spoke. I have no interest in destroying this company. I built it. I know its value. But leadership needs to change. Completely. I looked at each board member. Anyone involved in the conspiracy to terminate me has 24 hours to resign. Anyone who stays gets sued personally. 3 people stood up immediately. Others looked ready to run. This company will be rebuilt. Ethically. Properly. With people who earn their positions instead of stealing them. The interim CEO cleared his throat. And who runs things during this transition? I do, I said. Not as an employee. As the owner. Security didn't escort me out this time. They escorted everyone else. And I sat alone in the boardroom where my career had been destroyed. Now it was mine. All of it. I didn't destroy Horizon. Destroying it would have accomplished nothing. Instead, I rebuilt it. Removed every executive involved in Derek's scheme. Brought in ethical leadership. Implemented actual oversight. I publicly credited the engineering team that had been exploited. Gave bonuses to people whose work had been stolen. Created IP protections so what happened to me couldn't happen to anyone else. The company stabilized. Clients returned. Stock recovered. Not to previous levels, but to honest levels. Built on actual value instead of stolen work. Derek faced criminal charges. Wire fraud. Conspiracy. Theft of trade secrets. His trial was scheduled for next year. I'd probably have to testify. I was ready. Amanda moved to a smaller house. Got a job. We communicated through a co-parenting app. Polite. Distant. Functional. The kids adjusted. Slowly. They spent weekends with me in the new house I'd bought. Not a mansion. Just a home. With bedrooms for them and a yard for a dog we'd gotten together. Sophia asked me once if I was rich now. Comfortable, I told her. Is that why you won? No. I won because I told the truth and had evidence. Money just gave me time to gather it. I think about Uncle Vincent sometimes. The recluse. The failure everyone dismissed. He'd understood something important. Real power isn't loud. It's quiet, patient, strategic. He'd built an empire in silence. And when he died, he gave it to someone he believed would use it wisely. I hope I have. The money changed my circumstances. It didn't change who I was. I still work. Still create. Still believe in building things properly. But I understand now that justice and revenge are different. Revenge is quick and satisfying and ultimately hollow. Justice takes time. Requires patience. Demands evidence. But when it finally arrives, it's permanent. Derek lost everything. Not because I destroyed him, but because I exposed him. Amanda lost me. Not because I punished her, but because I refused to accept betrayal as normal. And I gained back what mattered. My children. My reputation. My peace. Sometimes I sit in my uncle's old house upstate. The one he left me along with everything else. And I think about that afternoon when I was 12. When he told me systems are more honest than people. He was right. But he was also wrong. Because the right person with the right system, with the right evidence and patience, can make people face the truth. And that's the most honest thing of all. Before I go, tell me, where are you reading this from? Have you ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted? Drop a comment. I read them all. And if this story meant something to you, share it. Because sometimes people need to know that being defeated isn't the same as being finished. Sometimes the quiet ones win in the end.